Um, so today I'm going to talk about Beethoven's Für Elise, and I call it the piece that students love and teachers love to hate. The reasons teachers tend to get sick of it after, I don't know, many years in the business is because they have to teach it so much. And very often it's not played very well. And it's played by people who are really not ready to do so. They hear it somewhere, and then they want to play it because it's probably the most famous piano piece or piece of music actually in the world. You can hear it on answering machines. You can hear it in waiting queues and phone lines. It's especially gruesome when those two notes are out of tune, especially the D sharp tends to be too high. Anyway, so all those kind of things make this a contentious piece for piano teachers. I want to do a little bit of honor restoring because I think it is actually an absolutely brilliant piece of music. And I would say that deep down, most of my piano teacher colleagues would agree with me. It is actually really excellent music. The genesis of the piece is actually quite interesting and still a little bit shrouded in mystery. And I will not bore you with all of that because you can read up on all that on the internet. Wikipedia is a good start. It is not a scientifically solid source, of course, but it's very often a good starting point because there's usually a bibliography at the end or an article is referenced and so on. The other thing I did on the other live feed which didn't work, but if you can still find that post, if not, I will post that later, are links to three sources total. Hi, Adrian. Links to three sources total. The first one is, Adrian, I miss you too. The first one is the sketch that we have from 1810. We have sketches of Für Elise on the same sketch pad as the Coriolanus Overture and another march in C major. Music staff paper at the time was very expensive, so composers usually use it for many different things. And so it's a little chaotic. It's almost impossible to read. I'm going to put it in front of the camera and maybe you can see a little bit of something here. What you can see is how chaotic it is. So it's really difficult to decipher what Beethoven wrote, but it's actually really quite interesting. One of the things that you can see is a pencil marking in Beethoven's handwriting on top of it that says molto grazioso. Usually the way the music is marked in contemporary scores is poco molto. The other thing I linked to was the first ever published edition of this piece, which is by Ludwig Nohl. It was in a actual collection of letters by Beethoven. And so that is the first printed version of this piece that we have. And Nohl claimed that he had the manuscript of this piece, called it Für Elise. The title is also questionable. Also, who this was dedicated, who this Mystery Elise was. Maybe it was a Therese. Anyway, you can read all this up in the Wikipedia article, which is actually quite good. I'm more interested in the music itself, the version that we have. There is also, just for a complete picture, there is another version of the Elise, which I have not been able to track down. I know I could buy it somewhere, but I couldn't find it so quickly. An English musicologist by the name of Barry Cooper, not Gary Cooper, Barry Cooper has made a reconstruction of a different version of the Elise, and I will show a couple of little things. What we don't know, since we don't have the manuscript, so Nohl said he had the manuscript and then the manuscript was lost again. We don't know what the final version, the final idea of Beethoven's Elise actually was. So in the sketches, there's quite a lot of the music. There's not everything, but especially what is not clear is how the different pieces actually fit together. So it could very well be that Beethoven's final idea for the Elise, especially in a formal sense, was a little bit different than what we all know and have. Okay. So I thought the first thing I'll do is I'll play the piece, and I hope that the sounds come across decently. I have a nice microphone setup that I borrowed from my son, who is a sound recording engineer, and so I hope this sounds okay. You can give me some feedback whether everything is to your liking. Actually, let me put the gain down. My son, other son, had put the gain up earlier because he recorded something soft. There we go. Okay, here is Für Elise in all its glory. It is. That's really funny, Aaron. Okay, so there is Miss Elise, the piano piece Bagatelle in A minor, composed in 1810. Again, we don't know exactly who it was composed for. And in 1820, 10 years later, Beethoven actually looked at this piece again, revised it to see whether he could put it in a collection with other bagatelles. And there is something called the 11 new bagatelles, 11 neue Bagatellen, from 1820 to 22. And the first one is also a rather famous piece that is also played sometime. And it's in G minor, and the character is actually quite similar. So I'm going to play a little bit of that. This is the Bagatelle Opus 119, number 1 in G minor. and so on. So this is the G minor ballade, bagatelle, sorry, ballade is Chopin, G minor bagatelle opus 119 number 1, which has quite a lot of especially atmospheric similarities to Für Elise. One other interesting aspect of this is you have the A section. The B section is down a major third in the major key, so in the 6th scale degree. With Miss Elise, we have the main theme in A minor. And then we have the middle section in F major. So that's the same key relationship between the two of them. Oh, somebody's sound just died out. I hope it's not gone for everyone. So there's this same key relationship. What's interesting about the G minor bagatelle, and this is really the way it usually works, the formal design is in the G minor bagatelle in A-B-A form. So you have an A section, you have a B section that is contrasting in major and different key, and then the A section comes back. The Elise is actually a rondo form. So you have an A section, you have a B section, the A section comes back, you have a C section, that sounds funny, C section, and then the A section comes back. So that's really a classical rondo form. What is interesting about the way that Beethoven composes these different sections is that the A section is always very clear. It starts and it ends, it cadences. The B section starts out in something that could be quite an expansive modulated to C major. You could have done that, okay? And then something like that. Right. I'm not a composer. Anyway, so the B section is incomplete. Before the B section actually ends, in the G minor bagatelle, it ends, it cadences, and then we have the transition back to the A section. Here we don't have that. The B section all of a sudden in the middle sort of gets broken off. The music kind of dissipates and stops. What is this? Where are we going with this? And then we have these things where you play those minor seconds with the different hands, and of course students always miscount, so we never quite know how many we're going to hear, and then at some point we're going to be back in the A section. So that happens the first time, and then we come to the C section, the section C, part C. This one. And then we have this thing. And where does this lead? Something in a nowhere land, and all of a sudden we're back home in the A section. So both of these middle sections, the B and the C sections, don't really end. They kind of disappear and dissipate, and all of a sudden we're back in the A section. So they don't formally end, which I think is really interesting. So that is an unusual detail of the Elise, and I think it is very deliberate by Mr. Beethoven to do this. There are a couple of other really interesting little things about this piece that in my eyes make it very special. Some of you, if I play this, will know what this is from. This is, of course, from the introduction of the monumental, absolutely insane fugue of the Hammerklavier Sonata Opus 106, which was composed in, I can look it up, 1817 and 18. So about 8 years after the Elise, and about 3 years before the Bagatelles. And he does this thing where he basically distributes an empty F all over the piano keys. And it's an empty sound. And we don't know where the hell he's going with this. He's going to end up in a completely different key than he starts with this. So. This is Miss Elise. The music dissolves completely into empty sound. If anybody knows of an example that was ever done before 1810, before Beethoven did that, please let me know. Because this, to me, is an absolutely unique moment, and I don't think it was ever done before. So that's a really special thing in our little Elise piece here. And I don't know any other instances except the Hammerklavier and this where Beethoven does that. And it's an empty, there's no what's it called, quality to the key. So it's not major or minor. It is just the fifth and the root. And then we come to the back. Okay? And he does that 1, 2, 3, 4 times. If you play the repeat, he does that 4 times. So 4 times the music completely dissolves into sound. And in the other moments, it completely dissolves into nothingness before the piece regains its identity back from the beginning. So those are all, I think, really interesting devices. Of course, to be honest, when students often play it, they're not aware of that because, you have to point it out to them. And so that gets overlooked and just could play through, and you can really make something very special out of these moments. The other thing I find fascinating is the incredible motivic unity that Beethoven creates with this piece. So no matter whether the formal design is exactly as Beethoven had it in mind, like Noel claims, or whether the form actually might be a little bit different, the motivic unity is really quite stunning. So you have this, and just to be clear, it doesn't start 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That would be terrible. No, it goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So it started out with an upbeat. That is also something. Oh, there's my dog, by the way. Hello, dog. That's also something that is very often lost in translations. Now it's 1. So we have these pickup, and then the E, D sharp to E, so the so to Fi to so to Fi, and then we have these 3 little notes. So this motif of the 3/16 notes, this rhythmic motif of the 3/16 note as a pickup to the next measure, is already built into this. So then we have these rather unusual seventh jumps. If we turn that around, if we take the first note and bring it up an octave, we have this. Which of course is the turnaround of this, which is the pick up to the second, to the middle section of the A section. Okay. We can take these notes and play around with them, put them in a little bit different order. What do we have? We have this. So this three-note motif comes in all kinds of different guises and all kinds of different shapes. So when we come to the middle, to the beginning of the middle section, the B section, we have this in the bass. We have this in the middle voice. So there it is again. Last but not least, we have this. So these motivic connections, they are all over the place. Let me find another one. Now we have it in triplet form. Again, those three notes as a pickup to the next one. Okay, so those are all kinds of little special things that the Elise has in it that obviously very often get overlooked. The other issue with this piece is that it is actually much more difficult to play than people think. So somehow they get that, but then they come. So I have to be honest, in Germany when I taught, many students wanted to play it and I wouldn't give it to them because I said, you know what, you have to be ready for those middle sections because otherwise you can't play it and then it's really not worth doing it. So, you know, they would learn the beginning by themselves and I would let them, but until they were able to do the whole thing and do the whole thing well with the 30-second notes and the triplets and all that kind of stuff, I wouldn't let them officially play it and play it like in a recital or anything like that. I'm going to give you one little practice hint and actually fingering hint. So when you come to these things, most editions have, and I hope you can see that maybe if I put this down, most editions have 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 5. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So they have the first finger on the A, and then again on the A, right? And then this happens. A much better fingering that avoids those accents, and actually it's easier to play, is, now pay attention, 2, 3, 1, 2. And then you have to, okay, so 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 5. And then instead of going 4, 3, 2, 1, you go 4, 3, 1, 2. So you always want to end up on the second finger on that A. So one more time. 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1. Try that out. Try that out and you'll notice it's much easier to play. One other little interesting tidbit about this version that Mr. Barry Cooper claims as the revised version of 1820 is that Mr. Beethoven, according to him, did this. So that's a really interesting variant, and I really want to get a hold of that music. It's published by Novello in the 1980s, I think, and somehow I wasn't able to buy it anywhere, like not even Sheet Music Plus or Amazon, any of those places have it. Maybe I'll go with the Juilliard store or so. Okay, Well, that's basically it from me. There are still a couple of other things that I could mention. One thing I want to actually mention is this beautiful mode. Oh, another thing. So my fingering here in the Henley edition is 3 2 1 3 2 1 3 2 1 3 2 1 3 2 1 3. So finger change on the repeated notes. Well, what the hell are you going to do when the two notes come together? Are you going to do I don't know, 5 to 4 1 5? Are you going to just, no, you're not going to do finger change. You're going to play 1 5 or something like that, right? So it, to me, it doesn't make any sense to do a finger change on this. So I just use my second finger and okay, do notes again. And I just very lightly, I basically never leave the key bed or the key top. And if you then have in your mind the 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, it'll give you a much more mysterious and smoother sound than this. Okay, this is the Beethoven sound from like the Upper Sonata. These close together intervals in the bass line. I mean, that is as beautiful and as great as anything that Beethoven has composed. Last but not least, this beautiful move to the Neapolitan. And if you've ever heard me talk about the Neapolitan, Neapolitan is my absolute favorite chord. Neapolitan is always an indication for some kind of pain, and it's usually associated with unrequited love. It is almost like a signature tune. You have that in arias and by Mozart, by Beethoven, all the romantic lead repertoire. So if we take that as something to think about, this is also a very, very special moment, this move from the A minor to the B flat major. Okay, so I will play this piece one more time because maybe some of you tuned in later, and I will try and do it justice. Again, I think it is an absolutely beautiful piece of music. And piano teachers, if you get sick of it, well, then take a break. Assign the G minor bagatelle instead. It's actually also a beautiful piece, and students enjoy playing that. It's actually a little bit easier to play, and then have them play the Elise the next year when they're ready for it. Okay, so here we go one more time. Beethoven's Für Elise, and if you have any questions, you can message me, and I'll try to answer whatever comes up. Okay, here we go. Okay, my friends, thank you so very much for watching. And I might do this again at some point. If people enjoyed this, then join me again. And I'll hope to see you all soon when all this COVID madness is over. Okay.